That's good.
No, not that.
Bow, wow, wow, whose dog art thou? Little Tommy Tucker's dog. Bow, wow, wow.
Bow, wow, wow, whose dog art thou? Little Tommy Tucker's dog. Bow, wow, wow.
Excellent. What age group would you teach this song to? Why? I'm hearing like kindergarten first. What about that? How come?
Because it's only a single melody. There's no like complex polyrhythms.
No complex polyrhythms, single melody.
I know from like working with this age group a lot, pretty much after second grade, that's really stupid.
Yeah, it's like a baby song after that, right? Absolutely. No, that's like the exact right term, because you're going to have some third grader going, this is stupid. This is dumb. That's exactly right. So it's pretty simplistic, and it also fits their group socially and everything else. It doesn't seem silly to them. It's fun at that point. All right, I like all of that. What I want you guys to do, I'm just going to put this up, even though all of you can probably audiate what it sounds like. All right, you can make that happen in your own heads. I'm going to go ahead and put it up visually for you so that you can see it. Hopefully, if the .cam decides that it wants to join today, which it may or may not. If not, you may have to audiate it yourself and think about what that actually looks like. All right? Because what I want you to do is go ahead and take out your texts, which I see some of you have, and you can get into groups. You're going to have a couple of minutes, maybe 2 to 3, and I'm going to have you talk to me about what concepts. This is in our scope and sequence chart. That is page 30. You should get very familiar with this scope and sequence chart. And since we've decided that this is probably a song that you would teach to younger students, we're going to look in the level 1 portion of that, right? So I want you to take a look at the music that's there and then at your texts and say, what element might I want to focus on to teach this? And if I do focus on one element, is there a concept that I would probably teach using this song? And then what would that be? There is more than one right answer? Question mark? So go 2 to 3 minutes. You can work with other people. You don't have to do it by yourself. Yes. Yes, they did. Excellent. I'm so glad for you. It's really not a problem at all. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess like what kind of
For that. Yep. So take a look at bow, just to clarify, you're looking at bow, wow, wow and saying, this is the musical context that I have in front of me. If I were to teach bow, wow, wow to first graders or kindergartners, what would I want to teach them through this song? It's not just a fun thing that we're going to do. We're going to learn something about music. What are we going to do? See if you can find it in that text there.
That's what I was saying.
You got the song also.
Yeah.
You can choose more than one if you'd like. There may be more than one correct answer. And if you think there's more than one thing you could teach, go ahead and write them all down. However many you think fit. It's a great question.
Other parts, so they're like really accented.
entirely possible.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh,
We're machine with only
I'm so used to it.
and then melody.
Take some time.
I'm so used to it. I've got to stop doing that. All right. I'm hearing so many good ideas getting thrown out and so many things that are happening, and I'm really glad to hear them all. And I hear lots of this is why, which is great, because the why is like the really important thing. Why are you choosing this? So let's take a short sample from each sort of group that was together. If you had more than one, let me know what your best one was and why. What do you think is the easiest to teach or the most, the thing you would do first if you had your choice? All right, so from this group first, how about? From Damien's group.
We think rhythm.
Rhythm. What about rhythm would you want to teach?
There are a few different things. You teach steady beat, and you could also teach dotted rhythms.
Well, if we're talking about kindergarten through first grade, which one of those do you think makes more sense for them?
Steady beat.
Maybe steady beat for how would you have them become really aware of steady beat?
Having them jump up and down while it's singing.
While they did it, there's a very strong, large muscle movement that's taking place on beats. Absolutely, that's a great thing because we know that little folks in their development, a big part of how they develop themselves, they get really good at sitting down and being quiet, moving small muscles as they get older. There's a reason they have the big crayons and the huge scissors and the giant glue sticks when they're little kids, because it's big stuff. They move these a lot. So that's great. I love it. All right, next group. What do you all think?
We're thinking we agree with study with them as well. Articulation with the little tongue touching song, having it be so T heavy,
It teaches.
I was just gonna
It
move
teaches
it into the same sentence.
that. Okay. I wasn't sure what the last word was. Sometimes I don't hear things really well. I think you could absolutely do articulation there. I think it's possible. I don't necessarily, would it be your first choice or was your first choice steady beat?
Yeah.
Steady beat was your first choice, articulation was. You could do that too. Might not be my first choice for this year. Okay, excellent.
Well, we were doing articulation too, but we also talked about the step and skip,
Mm-hmm.
which seems maybe a little bit abstract for that age group, maybe a little, but I thought definitely you could help them distinguish like which pitch is higher and lower.
Higher and lower, absolutely. The great thing about this specific song, is that it has a really easy melodic contour to follow. It has a really easy up and down because it's exactly what it does. So if you're looking at the very beginnings of what you want to learn in melody, usually it's like same and different. What's the same, what's different, and then high and low. And so you're right there with it, talking about, well, I think step and skip might be too much for them, and I'm so glad that you said that. You were like, they're kindergartners. The little differences in these skips are very small. So you're right, it might be hard for them. But even just saying higher and lower, that's exactly right. And the great thing about this is it has a really easy thing for them to follow. So sticking along with what Damien's group said, how would you have them do that? Or how would you take them through? Because they're probably not ready to look at that yet. So how would they know about up and down? How would you get them as the teacher to experience that?
I'm just like thinking about like the little games you noticed, like because it was jumping, and then it was the hand, and then it was skipping. Right? Is
Yeah,
that right?
that's
So,
right.
I mean, you could almost for the high and low. I mean, the low, you're jumping your feet on the ground, and then the whose dog are thou? I mean, it's
A little
it's
higher.
a little higher, and then little Tommy Tucker's dog, and then you're skipping. So that's.
Absolutely, you could make it very body movement oriented, and it really is. Okay,
Almost squat down.
Yeah.
you can change it. I mean, the game is one thing to do,
And
but
then stand up.
So,
Yeah.
Or to come up with something different to show the I don't know.
absolutely, I think that's fantastic. I love that you just came up with that. All right, last group. Last but not least,
We thought about a couple of different things. We had the stuff and skip and short and long. But as far as the short and long goes, I think that's good for, as we talked about, instead of saying, well, this is a dotted note, this is a 16th note, for small children, something as far as short and long goes. When you say bow wow wow, they're longer, and when you say little Tommy Tucker's dog is shorter.
that's exactly right. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that's really easy for them. One of the things that is sometimes hard for us when we very first start teaching is when we try and pick something we want to teach and we have a musical context like this, making sure that it's really obvious for the students. It's something that's easily isolatable or something where you don't have to stretch real far to get to it. Like in this one, I might even, something else I might do with, say, first graders when they're getting ready for it is quarter rest, because it happens a lot in the song. And there's a time when it doesn't happen. So you can easily say, hey, you know what I mean? There are times when we have the music keeps moving, we keep moving in our song, but there's no sound happening on that time. And we can really easily see that, and there's a place where it doesn't happen. So you just always want to make sure that whatever you choose and what you're teaching is something that's really obvious to the kids. Steady beat is really obvious to them in this case because they're moving. They're doing something on the steady beat that's happening. It's easy for them to keep it. Melodic contour is really easy for them because it's very simple. It's not really that hard. It just goes pretty much straight up, straight down, short and long. You know what I mean? Articulation, smooth, smooth. You can make it smooth, smooth, smooth. And then there's a place where it's more jumpy and choppy. So you all picked things that really, really work and they're easy for kids to see. So that's fantastic. You teach so many things with this song. Here's another question for you. Since I'm just full of questions, I'm going to ask you so many you're going to get sick of it, but it's going to be okay. It's totally my job. So I'm going to ask you a question about why did I have you do this? I asked you, why would a teacher teach bow wow wow? Now I'm asking you, why did I, the teacher of 261, have you, the students in 261, do what I just had you do? What for? How come? No, maybe, I don't know.
Well, it makes me think of something I was reading in the book about how you don't really teach these concepts to the children. You let them experience them.
You let them experience them before you might name them. Lauren, you had something else you were going to say too?
Maybe I was thinking, they can critically think about what we're going to teach the children, so we can think more elaborately and think simple for the students,
Yeah, you sort of dissected it, and that's a great thing to do. And I saw, well, Damien, was it you? Who was it? Somebody over here? Okay. Well, I didn't really set it up that way, but I kind of gave you a problem to solve, right? Here's this thing. Do something with it. I didn't say solve a problem for me necessarily, but I said, here's this thing and I want you to do this. Go ahead and make it happen and tell me what you come up with. So that's what I did. I set up an experience for you to have, something to do that's going to eventually lead you to what I want you to know. I want you to know about how to teach kids. So I gave you a problem about teaching kids. What would you teach with this? All right, so we're going to try something else. And now for something completely different, which should be the theme of this class. And now for something completely different. I have a couple of words, and by a couple of, I mean 6. That's not really a couple. A couple is 2, especially for an elementary school. I should know that. I have clump, wiggle, shake, clap, nod, and boo. All right, I have a couple of things in my hand. I have 6 things in my hand, not a couple. I have something that looks like a drum. I have something that looks like a tambourine. I have something that looks like a maraca. I have something that looks like
Hands.
I have something that looks like like a GameCube. I have something that is it's a wood block, and that's my terrible drawing. It's still impressive if you're 5. And I have something that looks like, and my lips are on they're part of mine. Yes, they are. Very good. All right, so I want you to think about which one of these things that I have in my hand kind of sort of maybe could possibly go with the words that I have right in front of us. So I've got clomp. What about clomp? What does clomp sound like? Does it sound like this? Does it sound like that? How about that one? How about that one? Oh, I've got like a maybe, and I don't have enough hands. Oh, how many? So I'm hearing drum or wood block. How many of you vote drum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of you vote wood block? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
How many are
So that makes 6. Okay, for right now, we're going to put the drum there. Does that mean that we have to keep the drum there? No, we don't have to keep the drum there. This is Velcro. Velcro is amazing because it means we can change our minds anytime we want. How about wiggle? What out of all of these? Well, we like the tambourine. Does everybody like the tambourine? Yes. Okay, well, we'll put the tambourine as wiggle. How about shake? Oh, all right. Clap.
Hands.
All right, we're good at that. How about nod? Like the wood block. And boo. Yeah, I think we could probably, can we all say boo? Okay, good. We'll with much enthusiasm, we will definitely do that. All right. So, no paste this time, guys, but. All right. We've got some people that are just going to be hands, and I'm very sorry if your hands are boobs. So.
There you go.
You hit it.
All right, if I didn't hand you an instrument, I'm so sorry. You're going to be one of our body percussion people. And we have to remember that our bodies are amazing instruments. And you're going to get the chance to use all of them at some point in this class, even though you might not get the chance today. All right, so when you hear your word come up, I want you to play your instrument briefly. Yes?
For people that are body percussion,
Let's see.
claps or boots.
Well, how about both?
Okay.
Let's have you do both. Once upon a time, there was a little old lady who was not afraid of anything. One windy afternoon, the little old lady left her cottage and went for a walk in the forest to collect herbs and spices and nuts and seeds. She walked so long and so far that it started to get dark. There was only a sliver of moon shining through the night. The little old lady started to walk home. Suddenly, she stopped. Right in the middle of the path, there were 2 big shoes, and the shoes went clomp, clomp. Get out of my way, you 2 big shoes. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady, and she walked down the path. But behind her, she could hear 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. A little further on, the little old lady stumbled into a pair of pants, and the pair of pants went wiggle, wiggle. Get out of my way, you pair of pants. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady, and she walked on. But behind her, she could hear 2 shoes go clomp, clomp, and 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. Farther still, the little old lady bumped into a shirt, and the shirt went shake, you, said the little old lady, and on she walked, a little bit faster. But behind her she could hear 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. And 1 shirt go shake, shake. A little ways on, the little old lady came upon 2 white gloves and a tall black hat. And the gloves went clap, clap. And the hat went nod, nod. Get out of my way, you 2 white gloves and you tall black hat. I'm not afraid of you, she said. And on she walked, just a little bit faster. But behind her, she could hear 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. 1 shirt go shake, shake. 2 gloves go clap, clap. And 1 hat go nod, nod. By now, the little old lady was walking at quite a fast pace. She was very near her cottage when she was startled by a huge, very orange, very scary pumpkin head. And the head went boo, boo. This time, the little old lady did not stop to talk. She did not stop at all. She ran, but behind her she could hear 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. 1 shirt go shake, shake. 2 gloves go clap, clap. 1 hat go nod, nod. And 1 scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. The little old lady did not look back. She ran as fast as she could and didn't stop to catch her breath until she was safe inside her cottage with her door locked. She sat in her chair by the fire and she rocked and she rocked. It was so quiet in her cottage before, there's another word in here and I'm going to have the books do the wood block, knock, knock, all right? Knock, knock on the door. Should she answer it? Well, she was not afraid of anything. So she went to the door and she opened it. What do you think she saw? 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. 1 shirt go shake, shake. 2 gloves go clap, clap. 1 hat go nod, nod. And 1 scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady bravely. What do you want anyway? We've come to scare you. You don't scare me, said the little old lady. Well, then what's to become of us? The pumpkin head suddenly looked unhappy. I have an idea, said the little old lady. She whispered into the pumpkin's ear. The pumpkin head nodded and its face began to brighten. The little old lady said good night, closed the door, and whistled on her way to bed. The next morning, she woke up early. She went to her window and looked out into her garden, and what do you think she saw? 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. 1 shirt go shake, shake. 2 gloves go clap, clap. 1 hat go nod, nod. And 1 scary pumpkin head go boo, boo, and scare all the crows away. Okay, so the little old lady who was not afraid of anything. What problem did I give my students, say they were kindergartners, first graders, that you were playing parts of just now? What problem did I give them to solve? Yeah, what makes what sound? How are we going to do that? How are we going to make that happen appropriately? All right? Where in our, let's see, look in, what does that make sense to call that? Yeah, it's in timbre. Is there a concept that goes with timbre that's in there for like level 1? Yeah, it could be the quality of the sound is determined by the sound source. We've got all sorts of different things happening. Am I going to talk about that all on the day that we do the little old lady who is not afraid of anything? Probably not. It's just giving them experiences with different sound sources and saying, well, you know, what is this all about? And a really important thing to do, we were not sure about clomp and nod. A really important thing to do is give your students the opportunity to do what? make a decision and use Velcro and change their minds if they want to say, well, I don't really like that. I want to change. Do we want to change that? Do we like clump? Do we want to move it into not? Which is better? Are we happy? We like it the way it is. And that's fine too. If your kids like it the way that it is and they've made a good decision the first time, fantastic. But sometimes they're going to say, well, I don't like that. You know? And it sort of really depends. You're going to know that as the teacher. You're going to be like, well, this is probably the most appropriate, but sometimes they make decisions that surprise you. When I let kids make decisions about harmony, sometimes they put a chord that is rather unexpected. Don't they become the best little composers sometimes? And you're like, well, if I were writing this in Theory 3, my teacher would complain about the voice leading. But you know what? Third graders don't care about voice leading. They care about what it sounds like. And sometimes to them, this makes more sense, and I like the way that goes, and that's okay. It's all right for them. You learn things about them when you let them make decisions, right? Within reason, though. I mean, we didn't have every instrument in the closet out here, right? Not everything in the world existed. But you could do all sorts of different stuff with this. You can do it with lots of different stories. It also fits really, really well in the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, or the Essential Standards, or whatever they're calling it this week. There's even a standard in there about that. And it even fits over with the kindergarten or first grade literacy standards. It's in their language arts standards as well. So this is a great opportunity to do that. And kids love stories. They love stories. And it's a great way for you to let them have a lot of fun and make some decisions and learn something about timbre, melody, rhythm, whatever the thing happens to be in that time. So we gave them a problem to solve. And we decided, all right, here's where we are with this. It's a timbre thing, and we gave them a timbre problem to solve. What would you say about whether this was performing, describing, or creating? You know, that was part of your reading, so that's one of those things where I'm like, hey, what did you read? So did they perform, describe, or create?
Perform and describe.
Ooh, they performed and described. Did they create? What is it? Yeah, could it, I mean, it really sort of,
they created like what went up on the board. I mean, that affected like how the story went, the sounds, so.
It did affect the way, so they did some creating, absolutely, 100%. Did we focus on the performing aspect? Not too much. It wasn't like a huge, it was more about their decision making and what they wanted to do with it. It was a little bit more about creating than the other ones, just based on how I did that. Could you do that differently? Sure. You could do that, you could set it up in a different way. But in the way that I set it up for this lesson, I would say it was a little bit more creating than any of the other ones. So we talk about, and this is really important because it's going to be on your test. This is one of those where I tell you you should write this down because it's going to be on the test. You're going to be on Blackboard. It's in your text, but you should write it down anyway. Learning is a process where the learner grasps musical concepts by attending to a musical context while engaging in a musical behavior. That's a long sentence, and it has a lot of meaning in it. You're totally going to have to remember it and identify it at some point. But it has lots of words in it. I think we should talk more about what they mean than what they actually are, right? We talked about that in our last lesson. What's more important, that you understand what it means or that you can give me the exact sentence, right? One of those things is more important than the other. So we said that you're going to grasp a concept, the learner, rather, is going to grasp a concept by attending to a context while engaging in a musical behavior. So, with the little old woman who was not afraid of anything, what was the concept that we thought that might fit with that activity? It was about timbre, right? What was the exact concept that we thought would be good? I'm going to write it down.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I was trying to write.
That's okay. What is the musical concept that we wanted to learn with the little old woman who was not, or the little old lady who was not afraid of anything? Is
Oh,
timbre the concept or the element?
It's the element.
It's the element. What's the true thing, the true statement about timbre that we thought they might learn?
The quality of the sound is affected by the material, shape, and size of the source.
Quality of the sound. One more time for me.
The quality of a sound is affected by the material, shape, and size of the source.
Material, shape,
And size.
and size of the source. Sorry, that might be blocked. I'm not sure whether it is. All right, so that's the concept we wanted them to learn. What is the context? What is a musical context?
The story.
In this case, right, it was the story. Normally, the story, it was the little old lady who was not afraid of anything. Sorry, that. So the story in this case was our musical context. That's not a typical context. What's a normal context that we would have in a music class? Piece of music or a song, yeah, that's right. In this case, we used a story instead. All right, so that's great. We used a story instead of a song, but it's still the context. And what was the musical behavior?
It was associating.
Very simple. One of the three.
Creativity.
And we created. Or, here we go, creating. So when we talk about the learners grasping a musical concept through a musical context by engaging in a musical behavior, that's just like a real fun way to say learning. That's how they learn. We pick what we want them to learn, the concept. We pick the material we're going to do it with, the context. And then we pick what they're going to do with it, the behavior. All right, so that's like a lot of technical terms and a really complicated sentence for what you do when you teach, right? But you should remember those terms because they will come to serve you well. It's one of those teachery things. We start to add jargon as we become more familiar with certain things, just like we do in music. We don't start off with kindergartners and talk to them about quarter notes and quarter rests and all that stuff because we'd rather have them do it first and engage with it a little bit, have some experience with it, and then later, after they've done it for a while, we say, hey, you know what? That thing that we've been doing, the one beat of silence we've had, that's a quarter rest, and it looks like this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like an afterthought to them at that point. So you guys have already engaged with this musical concept, context, and behavior, so I feel like it's okay to call them what they are, because you guys are older, and it's much easier for you to make that leap than it would be for a kindergartner. So that's why we did that. So concept, context, behavior. So that's one of those things you're going to want to remember. It's going to be pretty important for you. We are going to talk a little bit about concept formation, about all these things. We've got this book full of these concepts here. They're all over in here. There's like 13 some odd pages of different concepts that relate to the different musical elements that we're going to be dealing with K through 5. Those elements, this is not the only time you should deal with them though, all right? All the way through middle school and high school, you should probably still be teaching kids about these things in music, just with more complex musical contexts, right? They can learn different things because now they've got this stuff down. But we don't stop teaching about them. It doesn't start becoming one of those things where we go, well, I guess you know all of this. Because usually they don't. Because when they have general music, they only have general music for 35 minutes a week on average. So how much can they learn in 5 years? Can they learn everything there is to know about these elements of music and all those concepts at a point where they're really, really comfortable with them and they're expert musicians and we can just throw them away and never do them again when they get to middle school band? Probably not. I mean, really, let's think honestly about our ability to do that. Probably not. No, we're just not given enough time. Maybe if we saw them every day for like an hour, maybe. they might be really, really good at it. Does that mean that we should still get rid of it? Even if they're really good at it? Probably not. Because what am I still doing here with you guys? Talking about all this stuff. You know what I mean? And you're in college. You're 20. And I'm still setting up similar types of activities for you because it's how we learn. All right? So, here we go. When you teach about melody, do you start off with knowing interval size? We're in kindergarten. Do I say, you know what? Kindergartners, here's what we're going to learn today. Pretend there's a staff here. Use your vivid imaginations and pretend there's a staff. Do I look at kindergartners and say, this is a whole step, half step? Do we do that?
No.
Why not?
Because their poor little heads would explode.
Because their heads would explode. They would go, what? Right, because it's too complex for them, right? There's just too much going on. What might we start with? We talked about it a little bit earlier. I think Savannah said it. Yeah, something like contour, like up and down, same and different, high and low, things like that. We might start in those kinds of places. So concept formation goes from something that is more simple to something more complex. That's right. You don't start reading. When you start reading, you don't start reading War and Peace. You start by turning the book the wrong. Have you ever seen a kid that's paging through a book and it's even upside down or they're doing it backwards? Because they haven't learned pagination yet. They don't know that. They know that the pages turn, but even learning which way the book goes and how to read is a skill. They have to learn that at some point in time. So it's the same thing with musical concept formation. And a lot of times they have to learn the simple thing before they can move to the complex thing. Could you teach meter without an awareness of steady beat? Because it's all about beat. That's right. It's all about grouping the pulses, and right. So if you don't have a concept of the pulse, you can't group it into different things if you're all over the map. So it has to go from simple to complex. So our concept formation is going to go there. Let's see. Concept formation depends on your ability to perceive. Ooh, your ability to perceive. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about with bow, wow, wow. If it's not there in the music to be perceived, how can they learn it? So in bow, wow, wow, you're not really going to be able to dissect form, are you? Is there a form to bow, wow, wow? There could be a form, right? It's possible. Is it really apparent? Maybe not. That might be harder. That might be a hard thing to do. So would you use it to teach about form? Maybe not. All right, so it has to be there and be perceivable because they would get really confused if you started talking to them about which parts of the song are the same and different. Because it's really short. It's a very short song. And also because the things that are in it, they're sort of different, kind of, but maybe not, and they might not be able to see a difference between them in order to make a distinction about form.
Would you teach about forms like more phrases?
I would definitely, a song that has more phrases, probably, yeah. You can do it with short songs, but again, it has to be something that is really, where you could say, one I really like to do, if you want to talk about the simplest song in the world to use to analyze form. And we're just going to do it based on rhythm. You will recognize this because you're going to audiate it in your head. I know you. You guys are smart cookies. Some of you probably already know it. If you've ever played a recorder in your life, what song is that? It is Hot Cross Buns, isn't it? And you all just went through and audiated the song in your head. Could you do form with Hot Cross Buns? Yeah. but it's really apparent, right? It's really clear. So it has to be there in order to be perceived, in order to be able to point it out. All right, so yeah, it's got to be there. How about this? If you're trying to teach something about tempo changes, for example, and the little lightning went off in some people's eyes. Ready? Go ahead and tap the steady beat on your flaps or desk board. Some people are making different choices than other people, which is fine. It's hard when the rest gets here, isn't it? All right. Have you ever heard a version of that that doesn't do a full-on accelerando like this one does? Because they totally exist and they're out there. So sometimes you even have to be careful about, you think in your head, well, in the Hall of the Mountain King has an accelerando in it. Of course it does, but it doesn't always. So you have to be careful when you pick your musical context to do it. You have to make sure that it's really obvious, because I went through 4 versions of this before I picked this one. Because there were 4 other versions I tried before this, and I was like, no, you can barely tell that it's there. Or it only happens at the very, very end. It didn't happen full scale over the whole piece. And if I want first graders to hear that there's an accelerando, it's got to be there, like a lot. And they've got to be very aware of it. So it has to be able to be perceived in order for them to understand it. All right, so it moves from concept formation, that is, it moves from the concrete to the abstract. Those are really big words for something really, really simple. Child development, think about how little kids are. They don't really understand abstract concepts at 5. They understand what is. What's in front of me right now? What am I dealing with? They can't really, planning, it's not really a 5-year-old's thing. They have a hard time looking off into the future and knowing how doing this will affect something else. That's not how they're wired. They just are not used to that yet, and it's part of their development. And so we can't start off asking them about a really abstract thing. You have to give them something concrete. So like when my niece and my nephew were wee and small, they had 2 little dogs, Oscar and Lizzie. And Oscar and Lizzie are adorable miniature dachshunds. All right, but every single dog that they ever saw was Oscar and Lizzie when they were little. Every dog was Oscar and Lizzie. It could have been a dog as big as a mountain. It could have been a greyhound. Oscar! It's because it's a dog. They don't understand that not all dogs are Oscar or Lizzie. As they get more experience with their world, they go, oh, that's a different dog. What is your dog's name? Different dogs have different names. They belong to different people. Sometimes they're different colors, and it's not coming home with me. Was one of the most important things my sister had to teach them was, no, we cannot take this dog home. It cannot come and live here in our house. So it depends on also concept development, formation. It depends on the complexity of the example, all right? This is a lot like an earlier one that we talked about. It needs to be easily perceived and isolatable examples of the concept. I love hot cross buns to teach a lot of things. I love it for quarter rest. Quarter rest is a great way to teach it because look at the one time it doesn't happen, right there. Look at all the times it does and the one time it doesn't. It's very simple to pinpoint that difference. if we were doing it with form. It's very easy and isolatable, all right? So make sure that when you're trying to introduce a concept and name it and call it and, you know, all of this stuff, it has to be something that they can latch onto and grab onto, bless you, and see easily and understand easily. Concept formation, especially for young students, is a gradual process. You cannot have them one day in kindergarten and say, okay, we've done high and low, and then next week move on to skip and stack. They need a lot of experience with high and low and same and different. What is, I want somebody to do what you think is right to do with this thing. Kate, do what you would normally do with that. You're 5. By the way, this is how my mother taught me how to tie my shoes. I sat in the back of a car with a shoe box and learned to do it that way. It was the best way in the world for my mom to get me to shut up for 5 seconds. Put rope in my hand and tell me to configure it in a strange way. It's your friend's birthday. You are 7 years old, and you have never, ever wrapped a present before. But I want you to put a pretty bow on this thing. You learned to tie your shoes when you were 5.
So I do know.
Do you?
Do I?
Do you?
There are 2 ways.
Yes, there are. You're so right, and you can do it either way. It's fine. That was one that I had hoped that I could get rigs for everybody so that we could talk about the different ways. Because my husband and I, he does the way you're doing with the 2 bunny ears, and that's how you go. I do bunny rabbit round the tree through the hole and out. Yep, and some people do 2 bunny ears and cross them, and that's how they do it. But you know how to tie the bow on a package because you have practiced tying your shoes for like 2 years before you did that. And you did what with that skill? You transferred it from this context of shoe. I've been tying this on my shoe for a really long time. Now I want to tie a present. I've never done it before, but how am I able to do that? Because I've had experience doing it. Now I'm just putting it into a new situation. I'm moving it to a new place, right? But it takes a long time because guess what? How many of you have ever tied your shoes one time when you were little, but then you couldn't do it again? You had a little bit of difficulty. I've managed under direct supervision a few times to tie complicated knots that they try and teach you in Boy Scouts, but I could never do them again, ever. It's because it's hard and I didn't practice it. I never practiced it, so I couldn't do it again after that. I couldn't do it when I went camping. I couldn't transfer the skill because I hadn't had any practice doing it. I was really good with a knife. I've never had any corners taken off my tote and chip, but no, ropes, not my thing. All right, so you need practice to transfer. You need time. You need experience, all right? So I would love, love, love in the last 3 minutes. Take out a half sheet of paper. You can do some writing for me. I'm also going to remind you before I give you my questions to email Ms. Secoy your schedule, because right now you should hopefully have it all determined because you should have your lessons set with your teacher. If you don't, send Ms. Secoy an email that says, I don't have my schedule yet, but I will, just so that she knows she should be expecting it from you. Otherwise, email it to her. I have 2 questions.
On Blackboard?
It is, I can write it up.
Okay, it's on Blackboard then.
And it's on our syllabus.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys all have it? Okay.
All right.
We should do a screenshot of it.
Sure.
One's clear.
I think that's just you, and you and I can talk. Okay. Think about a time when you've transferred an understanding about music from one piece to another. When have you done that? When have you transferred something you learned about music from one piece to another? It may be way back in your memory banks because you guys are very good musicians now, but think of a time when you had to do that. And the second question, and this one is so loaded and I'm so sorry to do it to you. What is music of value? What is music of value? By that I mean, what is valuable music? What kind? What sorts? What type? What does it mean to you, that statement? What is music of value? So name a time for me when you transferred something in music. What is music of value? And that is a wonderful, you guys are fantastic class to teach. I love doing it because you guys always play along. And I think it's great. Yes?
Question number one has to be specific.
What you can, clarify for me what you mean by that. It has to be specific, like, ornamentation. Technique of playing in some way, shape, or form.
Second question, like how is music valuable or?
Not how is it, like why is it a valuable thing? I mean, what kind of music is valuable? What is music of value? Like if you had to say, even look at it from the opposite end, the negative end, what kind of music is not valuable? So by saying, this I don't think, no, well then what is? When you get rid of that kind that you don't think is valuable, what is valuable?
Is it kind of like our
Oh yeah.
Get our name.
It's not necessary. It won't matter to me too much. If you don't want to put your name, that's okay. If you do, that's fine too.